thank you so much for spending some of your day with me. I always appreciate the chance to talk to you. You may recall, gosh, it's probably about a week and a half ago now. I don't know, all the days blend together. We had a guest on the show. Her name is Leslie, and she told us about an event that she was organizing over at the headquarters of Denver Public Schools in Golden, a walk around the school administration building to let the people who work in that building know how many parents in Jeffco schools, parents of Jeffco school kids, want their kids to be back in school full-time, in-person learning. And because it was during the day, some folks were at work, they couldn't really get over there. So they've been asked by a lot of people to, have another one. So I want to make sure you know that this evening at 6:30 p.m., they're going to do another one to accommodate working parents who want to come out and show support for in-person learning, folks who were unable to participate last time. So this is 1829 Denver West Drive in Golden. 1829 Denver West Drive in Golden. You can just look up Jefferson County School Administration Office if you forget the exact address at 6:30 this evening. Now, why is that so important? Why is it so important to so many parents, including to me, by the way, that my kids get back to in-person learning as quickly as possible? Joining us to talk about this from a psychological perspective in particular, but also from the perspective of a parent with multiple school-age kids in Jeffco schools, Rob Reynolds is a licensed therapist and, well, like I said, for a variety of reasons, he cares about this a lot. Good morning, Rob. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Ross. Thanks for having me.
Why is it important for kids to have 100% in-person learning?
I can tell you in a nutshell, it's because school matters for mental health, and it matters a lot. And so me adding my voice as a professional mental health provider is just, along that. Not only that, I'm a parent, and so I see my kids and what they're going through with all this as well. But it matters for mental health.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Mental health encompasses a lot of things. So how is it beneficial for mental health to be in school full-time or harmful to mental health to be stuck at home?
Well, kids gain all kinds of things in school. It provides the opportunity to learn how to maintain friendships, to make friends, to behave in groups, to interact with other people, to form relationships with other people outside of the family, and all of those things are critical. They get the social interaction needed for the development of language, for learning how to communicate, for developing emotional, interpersonal skills. The list really honestly goes on and on.
This is going to sound like a really odd question maybe, but what about the mental health of the parents?
Yeah, that's a great question. Similar. So I'm definitely seeing an uptick in my practice, and we are as mental health professionals, in distress in families, parents included. So this doesn't only affect the kids, it impacts parents as well. We're seeing lots of anxiety and depression. This is really hard to get through. So having the school support and having that sort of routine helps families as well as kids.
So I want my kids back in school full time, but I also do recognize that the virus is a real thing, that teachers and other staff at schools, like lunchroom workers, school bus drivers, some of these folks could be a little older, could be at a little more risk, might have medical conditions. How do you balance these things in your own mind, both from your professional perspective as a therapist, but also as a parent of school-age kids?
There's risk for sure, but there's risk in life just in general. And that's something, obviously when people come to me, we talk about that, we work on that. That's a large part of where stress and anxiety comes from. But that's why, part of this group is about a safe return. And that's really why I'm adding my voice to this group and to just the idea of returning safely to in-person, to have the choice. The CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, many educators and administrators, the NEA, which I think is the National Educators Association, all are sort of advocating for the same thing, a safe return. So risk, certainly, but there's risk in life, and that's not to downplay the risks that we're seeing now. But to do it safely here is the key. And to have the choice, that's the other part, is the group doesn't advocate for a forced return for everybody.
Right.
This is about having the choice.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put the teachers' unions in with those other groups, because the teachers' unions have been arguing vociferously to not go back to school, and they've also been arguing that if you do reopen a school, if there's one single case in the school should be shut down. So the teachers' unions are not really on our side on this thing, for whatever reason.
They're not. Yeah, unfortunately. But I know that there are precautions being made. My wife happens to be the PTA president in our elementary school, and I know that they've spent thousands of dollars in personal protective equipment. So, again, the key is like a safe return, right? And it's not about forcing, it's about a choice. And the larger part of that is that the mental health here for the kids is what matters the most, and it's significant. And it's kind of a conversation that's not really being had as much as it needs to be, because the impact here is great, and it's increasing. And I can speak to that as what I'm seeing in my practice.
My special guest, Rob Reynolds, licensed therapist and father of multiple school-aged kids in Jefferson County. Actually, this is a conversation that I had with my kid, middle school-aged kid, who said to me fairly early in the pandemic, when I asked, would you like to get together with some friends? Actually, I shouldn't say early. Kind of middle of the, between March and now, whatever the middle is, sort of June time frame. Would you like to get together with a friend? Because my kid's stuck at home, bored, I let him stay on the computer too much because there's not much else he can go do. It's just bad all around, right? And my kid said to me, no, I don't want to, because I don't want to give him or give anyone else the virus. And I said, you have no reason to think you've been exposed to the virus and no symptoms, and you haven't been anywhere and you haven't done anything. So that's a very long way of getting to my question. What about kids who themselves are somewhat afraid of the virus, whether for their own health or for other people?
That's our job as adults and as parents, to sort of help reassure them there, to help them feel safe, not in a reckless way, but to actually, help them understand what's safe and what isn't. And again, you're speaking of a lot of the distress that our kids are feeling. I mean, this is the stress and anxiety. We see it every day. That's part of the narrative that we're experiencing is, how awful it can be. And it can be awful for sure. But again, the stress that they're feeling is coming from these sort of conversations. And so, as parents, as teachers, and as, mental health professionals, that's kind of our role there, is to help them navigate all of this, and help them understand, what can be safe and what can't be.
Obviously, there's a continuum of how intense a conversation you'd have based on the age and maturity of a kid. You wouldn't have the same conversation with a 7-year-old as with a 17-year-old, right? But if you're talking about, let's say, kids who are old enough to really understand what's going on, high school, maybe mature middle schoolers, what would you tell them about if a kid came to you, if your kid came to you and said, Dad, I'm really worried about getting the virus or giving it to other people? What would you say to a 16-year-old right now?
I would have a conversation about what's happening. I would have a conversation. I would help him, together. We'd go look for, statistics and things like that. I'd help him sort of come to his own conclusion. And I think when I can do that, I can help, him not only understand how to make decisions, but also how to sort of, navigate hard stuff, because hard stuff is in life. And again, in the classroom, in person, that's part of what the in-person stuff is all about, right? Being in the classroom, kids learn these things daily. And so, again, that safe return there is so critical. to their mental health.
If my last question for you, Rob, if your kid was in school and you learned that 2 kids in your kid's math class tested positive for coronavirus, would you keep your kid in school?
Personally, I think I probably would. Again, everything's circumstantial, right? But
Yeah.
personally, I think I probably would. I mean, I'm no expert here, Ross, on that part, but just echoing, what the American Academy of Pediatrics has said, and the CDC as well, that, safer for kids. All of this is safer for kids. So again, my focus is the mental health aspect. I would be more concerned about how they're experiencing that emotionally.
Right, and we didn't get into this a lot, but for a lot of kids, being in school is a key source of their nutrition. It's one of the key ways where child abuse is found by teachers. There are a lot of upsides for kids, especially kids of lower incomes that we haven't really talked about today, where being in school, this might not sound great, but it can be a much bigger hardship for lower income kids to not be in school than for, upper middle class kid who's got a parent who doesn't need to work anyway and has a stable home and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of reasons why kids need to be in school. Are you going to be at this thing this evening, Rob?
I am going to be there, and I invite anybody to come. I'm happy to be a resource to the community if you want to come and support the walk, or if you want to come ask me questions. 1829 Denver West Drive at 6:30 tonight. I'll be there for sure. And also, additionally, if anybody has any questions, you can get me through email. Probably the best way through my website, FamilyStrongCounseling.com. I'm just happy to be a resource to the community in any way that I can.
Thanks so much, Rob, and I'm with you. We need to get our kids back in school. Thanks for being here.
Totally. You're welcome, Ross. Thank you.
All right. 6:30 tonight, 1829 Denver West Drive. If you're a Jefferson County parent and want to show support for getting kids back in school full-time, in person, as soon as possible, go make your voice heard. When we come back, we should learn this week